market. So a $600 pension 10, 15 years ago won't buy much of anything here today.
And why the millennial generation is starting to give up because they can't afford to get a good job or own a house.
8 million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3.
It is. And people are going to start rioting in the streets.
Was reported to have...
Hello? We are, okay, sounds good. So we got some sound. So once again, another surprise, but welcome, RTD Live Talk. Monday night. It is the second day of the month of September, doing a little live stream and kind of putting some pieces of the big puzzle together. And I wanted to just put it before you guys as a, a possible scenario of future event. So as you guys can tell from the title of this live stream here, it's going to be about capital controls and just my thoughts and, just me guessing, looking ahead and get your thoughts on it. But more importantly, as always, won't be on long this night. Just want to check in, see how's everybody doing. This is the first live stream of September. So I wanted to definitely try to stick to my 9:30-ish time frame. So that being the case, welcome to RTD Live Talk. My name is Mike, the host of RTD Live Talk. 2 ways to communicate via the chat here. If you any new viewers, let me know where you're watching from. We'd love to acknowledge your presence. There's a number above my head, 313-462-0027. It's a number for you to call in and let me know what's on your mind, or if you got thoughts or comments on tonight's subject matter. But I have about 6 or so different articles to kind of refer back to in regards to the question mark posed to this video title. So that being the case, let's dive right into it. Let me see who's watching thus far. And so loud and clear, sounds good. So my sound is good. And so we're good to go. We got Spirit King. We got Worldwide Emergency. What's up, family? Jeff Doris. What's up, Mike? How you doing, Jeff? We got Yu Tran. Hello. Don. It's what else we got here? We got Hernan. We got Scott. Kenneth. PayPal me link. 1K baby. PayPal me link. Okay. Okay. Watching. Omni Bone watching. Okay. So tonight, second player of September. New York Redneck, how you doing, my friend? Yeah, New York. I saw your Instagram tag there, and definitely Chris Dwayne. I've had him on the show before, and so real familiar with his work, and so definitely I realize where Chris stands. I know what he's about, and so he's a pro silver guy to the T, and so I'm all in favor of that. And so I haven't had him on the show in a while. I think I might have reached out to him, but I'm not sure. But I'll definitely reach out to him and get him on the show again. And we are, kind of the biggest thing is we kind of, got an understanding of what he's going to be talking about. Oh, PayPal. Oh, 1K baby. I appreciate that, my friend. Go to rethinkingthedollar.com/donate, and you can get that information there as far as the PayPal address, because I don't remember it offhand, but it's at that rethinkingthedollar.com/donate. So appreciate that. Okay, so that being the case, Sunday, which was yesterday. So Sunday afternoon-ish or Sunday morning, so I think, like always, if I happen to probably read through the lines a little bit too much, but it helps me run possible scenarios through my mind to be able to share with you guys. But I've noticed throughout history, whenever there's some economic, financial crises in a country or somewhere or something like that, typically over the weekends is when the bankers happen to meet to come up with what they're going to impose upon the depositors and the savers and whatever. And that was the case in Argentina. So if you guys had a chance, I think it was on Thursday or Wednesday, I did a video about the situation in Argentina, which once again is another great example to pay attention to, because it's the result of a recession in the country where the financial markets in that country is now, as the financiers would probably say, being attacked because people are basically trying to get their money out. So we had a lot of financial bank runs due to the panic of the possibility or the likelihood of a sovereign default in the country of Argentina. And so basically what that means is the government is going through an election period right now, and it's going to be a change of the guard. And the new person coming in is a person of the old school, which basically they don't mind defaulting on debts. And when they default, the currency goes belly up. So because the citizens, all I think 30, 40 million citizens, or give or take, know that a default is occurring, so they're trying to run. So they're all rushing to the exits to get out, to get all their cash out of all their accounts and get out of the peso. So as of this past Thursday, Friday, a day after or the day of that little news clip I did, there was, I think, $2 to $3 billion withdrawn out of the capital markets, and people chose to take it out in dollars. And mind you, a foreign country has to have dollars on reserve, so they only had 68 billion on deck for the last month or two. And every day, every week since that initial announcement of a possible default 2-3 weeks ago, give or take, and the whole presidential cycle that's caused the panic, they've been withdrawn to the tunes of $2 to $3 billion a week, a day. So people are running. So because of that, capital controls is something that is nothing new, because it's put in place to avoid bank runs. So actually, since we on here, I'll give you guys, let me see here. So there's been capital controls in every country that senses a panic of the people, because you got to remember, the whole system is designed to keep your currency, keep your capital in it, because that's the lifeline of the economy. So if people start with withdrawing or removing their capital, there goes the economy, there goes, the system that's designed to keep you in it. So capital control. So I'm gonna pull up an article and let you guys see what I see, because I saw this yesterday, didn't have a chance to actually comment on it, but I'm gonna show it to you guys for those that might not have had a chance to pay a close attention to global news. But it says Argentina imposes capital controls as reserves drain away. And so if you're interested, I would just Google it. But as you guys can see, this map here, and I'll zoom in. So this is the hemorrhaging, as it says, of cash. So over the last since this the government primary election was announced, where Macri was well behind to his opponent. So since that time frame, people knew that the currency was basically, they're going to default on debt. So as you guys can see, it's been a drain on the currency, and it's going to get worse. And as I said before, I've mentioned this before, but as you guys can see, where we at? Right here. Right here. As of right now, over this weekend, is $54.1 billion as their savings in dollars. And of course, most of that, if not all of that, came by loan from the IMF. So Macri has been told that you can't use the money you borrow from us to prop up your own currency, but yet it looks like Macri's going against that, which is pissing the IMF off, I'm sure. So he's trying to protect the currency. And so as of now, $54 billion is all that's remaining. So capital controls is in play. So what does that mean? That means everybody, all the citizens, they have restrictions as to what they can do. There was a great article here, this is it, with all the list of restrictions that the citizens there, businesses as well, can participate or lack thereof in the economy. And of course, here's the biggest thing. The very moment that the government started to, or actually we probably could say from July, prior to that, everybody that was in the political realm, all the elite families, all the business owners, all the big wigs, they knew ahead of time what was coming. And so no doubt this decline already in the currency had to do with the elite already bailing on their own currency. So that's, I would imagine, to do with a lot of the decline there in the reserves there. But once it became mainstream news, and so remember, it's always when it becomes mainstream news that the public decide to respond. And so this is a great way of just trying to talk things through, because typically, if there was, God forbid, a bank run or global economic panic here, then it's not until it hits the news that you probably going to find out, and therefore it's too late. And so it's always good to be ahead of the trend, which is why tonight's, I think, is very important. So bear with me. But as you can see here, there's already some withdrawing going on. I wonder who it was, by the tune of billions of dollars. the people who knew it was coming. Once it hit the news, bam, then everybody else started going towards their financial accounts, cashing stuff out, converting pesos to dollars, bam. So here we are this past weekend. You can't do that anymore. So as of yesterday, they put restrictions on the people who are in last. People are trying to run to the exit last. So here's a little something what's going on. It says Argentines can only buy as much as 10,000 a month. So basically, what they're saying is you can only use your current savings in pesos to acquire $10,000 a month or transfer the same amount to a foreign account that doesn't belong to you. So basically, if you're trapped in a system in pesos, you can only get 10,000 out a month. And of course, I'm sure they have people who can get by that. But the average person who hears the news late, or that runs down or gets on the phone and calls their broker, they're the ones that are restricted to 10,000. And then it says here, if I was a tourist going there, it says limit is 1,000 in case of non-resident. So as a tourist, it says no limits. No, there was something else about tourists. It says no currency restrictions on tourists or Argentines abroad. So by a foreigner going there, they can transact in dollars and buy pesos, whatever, as much as they want. But I'd imagine you probably can do more than 10,000 without it being reported. Okay, so what you might be saying, what does that have to do with me? Okay, I'll let you know. So we are in a time frame. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you kind of know my stance as to where everything is heading. And so we're already in the midst of a global slowdown. It's already, everyone knows, the mainstream news has already told you that much. And a lot of it has to do with the mainstream narrative and the mainstream news that oppose Trump. So they're going to really overblow the situation, even though it is serious. But yet it's all meant to basically reassure that Trump isn't reelected. So whether he's for him or against him, it doesn't matter. The economy is still coming down. And so with that being the case, so the U.S. is a safe haven asset, so everybody's running the dollars. And so there's recessions in a variety of countries. There are recessions going on in certain areas in Europe right now. There's a recession in Argentina, and a lot of South American countries are in recession, which basically means they're contracting. Their economy is contracting due to a stall in business and everything else. And it has a lot to do with them being over indebted. And so those countries, those governments are no different than us, apart from the fact that we currently have the privilege of having the reserve currency, which means everyone, for the most part, still use dollars. But this is all leading to the fact that one day, when the U.S. runs into a similar problem where people have already ran to their chosen outlets, which will probably be metals, governments, central banks run the metals, citizens run towards a close thing they get their hands on, which happen to be dollars. But there will come a time one day where we'll probably experience similar events to what's happening in the recessionary countries. So with that being the case, what I believe, just my thoughts, let me know in the chat. I'll stop ranting. But I threw out 2020, summer of 2020, just because between now and that time frame, more of the truth will be revealed from a global standpoint of more countries in recessions, putting pressure on governments, period. So I can see, and let me know if I'm wrong, or let me know if you disagree rather, but I can see there being more governments announcing capital control like policies. And just to shine light on it, I'm going to pull up some here to let you know that this is not necessarily a far-fetched idea. And so the very first one I think would be worth your time. So Argentina as of this past Sunday. But here's something that I want to definitely shine light on. Let me pull this up. And so this is an article from Wolf Richter, who does Wolf Street. And so I just typed in China capital control because I was aware of it, but just couldn't find a regular article. But this is as of a couple days ago. It says China imposes new capital control, targets foreign real estate purchases as yuan falls to 11-year low. So everyone knows, if you've been following, the yuan it's been allowed to float freely and find its value on the markets, and therefore it's depreciating, which makes it appear as if it's a currency manipulation. But in actuality, I believe they're just letting it flow and not supporting it, because people are running from the yuan, which means there's excessive selling of the currency. So with that being the case, it says China foreign exchange reserve. So here's China's foreign reserve. So once again, because we have a privileged status as a reserve currency, every country who does business internationally has to use the petrodollar system or Federal Reserve notes. So China foreign reserve exchange. So China is sitting on, as of July, looks like a little bit over $3 30 billion. It could be 30 billion or it could be read out in trillion. So I think that's 3 trillion. They're sitting on 3 trillion in reserves. And as you can see, over the last couple of years, it's been dwindling, probably due to the fact they've been selling a lot as well. But a lot of people, a lot of the big money people in 3.1 trillion, a lot of the big money people in China are getting up out of there because of the problems they're having as far as the possibilities or the current recession they could be in, not sure. But they have more, it says, imposes new capital controls. So they've had capital controls in China now, according to some articles I pulled up, for over a year or two now. Ever since this whole trade war situation began, people have been running out of the renminbi. So another country. And so it usually, capital controls usually only really impacts those who have a lot in the system. And so high net worth individuals are the ones that typically are impacted by capital controls because they are the ones that have invested the most into the system with the expectations of getting future returns. And so that's Argentina so far, and that's China. That's just 2 examples. I got a couple more for you. But before I actually go to those, let me check in with the chat because once again, once I get started, it's hard to stop. So let me see what's going on here. Any thoughts, any questions, feel free to call in. Let me know. I'm curious to find out what you think. Let me see here. It says 2022 fire for them to wait to render controls. Stuff is hitting the fan now. Yeah, 100%. But you know, Omni, I'm just being generous with that time frame because once again, I don't see the U.S. implementing capital controls until more nations around us are really begin to go under. And then at that point, just the sheer panic from the markets, international markets, will really cause a stir here in the country where it's going to be hard to hide it. Therefore, to prevent panic here, capital controls will come. But this country here, the United States of America, will be the last one, I believe, to have point blank, you know, Trump or whoever else is in office announcing that there's a restriction on capital controls. And then to give you an idea of how that might play out and how capital controls that have already been in play, let me dive right into my next example of what capital controls that we already have in this country, of which a lot of people may or may not really have paid much attention to it. But capital controls has already been in play here in the U.S., but yet we don't really look at it that way because most people have been we've been conditioned to it. And so capital controls basically is a restriction on you being able to access your full pot, your full, you know, wad of whatever it is, or be able to cash out of whatever you want and just pull it out, you know, in large numbers. So if a lot of people start to cash out and begin pulling, then they will definitely enact some outright public cash, you know, currency control. But here's a good question. It says, how much money can you deposit before the bank reports it? And so just this mere question alone lets me know that there's control there. And so when it comes to capital control, this is the way that we've been conditioned to play within the lines. And guess what? For those that are in the know, it's $9,999 or $10,000. It says, when do banks report deposits to the IRS? Banks and credit unions are required. So banks and credit unions are required to report a cash deposit of $10,000 or larger. So it looks like Argentina has a $10,000 US dollar threshold that, you know, is a restriction. And then already here, and so this looks like this goes back to the Bank Secrecy Act and Patriot Act, probably really reinforced the whole $10,000 number. But we already have capital controls here in the U.S. of $10,000, to which you can still do transactions beyond that. But then it probably gets a little bit tighter because more questions are being asked. So that's basically saying that you are already restricted in a sense. So we already have $10,000 capital control limit now, deposits. And the same thing if you withdraw, they want to know, they got some questions for you. And so that's one example of capital controls. Then one that most people may not really be paying attention to, but I'm sure I have some Australian buddies out here that's watching. It says, you know, another way of controlling the capital is to put a ban on cash. So when I mentioned in the title, capital control, global capital controls by the summer of 2020, it's just not restricted to what we know of capital controls. We already have capital controls here as far as having you having to give an answer for what you want to do with your cash and where you get it from. Then we have one in Australia where there's a ban on cash payments. So you can't use cash on transactions above 10,000 Australian dollars. Another form of control. So we got lots of questions and answers to do transactions, a ban on cash. Then we got an actual Argentina example where you can't do more than $10,000 a month of purchasing US dollars. And then here's another one. So that's three examples of banning on cash. And so here's the next one. And this is what we're, let me hold off for a second. This is where I think we can eventually, I think we already got one of the possible four, but I think we can probably see something like this anyway. So this is from Greece, and so this is as of today. So a lot of people, if you're in alternative media, then you know that for quite some time now, there's been an economic crisis in the country of Greece, as well as Italy and everything else. But Greece has been unique in the fact that they've had capital controls in play for the last 4 years, and it doesn't really, get much airplay. And so to give you an idea as to the capital controls there, it says capital controls were imposed in 2015 during a standoff between international bailout lenders and the Greece government that triggered a 3-week closure of Greek banks and severe limits placed on the cash withdrawals. So here's another capital control methodology here, and I'll actually zoom in with this one. And so you Wikipedia capital controls in Greece to get a better understanding, and to let you know. And I think this is probably more than likely what we'll see, or something of this nature here, outside of what has already been given. But here's the limitations. It says in June 2008 or June 28, 2015, 2 important modifications were published by the government. While still limiting withdrawals to 420 euros per week, account holders could withdraw the whole sum in one transaction instead of up to $60 per day. So they give you options. So the fourth one is you'll be given options. You can do a lump sum per week, say $500 here, or say $75 a day in the US. It's just all me hypothetically saying. But yet being given an allowance as to what you can take out. And then it gives more information here, whatever. But these type of restrictions are just being undone 4 years later as of this past week. So can we have capital controls? Do we have capital controls? We already do in a sense, but yet as an example of what's going on globally, because nations are already in crisis mode, we can get a better idea as to what those other options may look like. So I gave you 4 scenarios that's already taken place. You got to give answers and questions to your currency. You have a $10,000 a month limitation. You have a cash ban where you can't use cash over a certain amount. And then you got your weekly and daily allowance being given out. So those are all capital control methodologies designed to keep the public during a panic to withdraw their funds. And so the reason I put 2020, and I have a super chat, let me acknowledge that. Let me see here. From Professor Curtis, Urban Treasure Hunter, says, thank you for your work, Curtis. I appreciate you, my friend, for the love offering for the channel. Appreciate it a lot. Okay, thought crimes. It says along with austerity. Okay, there you go. Austerity is another method that we haven't seen here in the U.S. So that's possible 5. And for those that may not know, austerity is simply a way of, and so it's usually it's positioned by the government to help. It's positioned by the governments to sell to the people to say that by us doing these cuts, and what we call them here, to be honest with you, thought crimes, is that we call them reforms, basically. So we got reforms here. Foreign nations, second, third world nations, they get austerity, which basically means cuts. They're gonna cut you. They're gonna cut your benefits. They cut your payouts. They cut. Here, because we're the lead nation on the planet thus far, we call them reforms. So we technically already got those anyway. Omniball says, be your own bank, become your own bank, buy Bitcoin. It says, Rami says, cash will still be used, but buy you what? Barter silver than gold for land purchase. Rami, good thought there. It still will be used. And that's why like all 4 or 5 of these categories of capital controls that I just listed, they all lead to black market activity or underground, or it's not really underground. It's labeled as underground. That's like a negative term given by the media. But it's citizens that scrambled because the government has oppressed or taken away the right for them to do what they normally do. So it's frowned upon as being something that's dark and dirt. They call it the black market, the underground. But it's just citizens just hurting. I mean, what else do you do when you're hurting? You got to get transactions. You do whatever you can do, and it's painted as being, dirty and illegal or whatever. But you got to eat somehow. So, yeah, man. It says China tried to ban Bitcoin already. That failed. Yeah, and so that's another thing. And ultimately, in my opinion, with all 5 of these capital control type policies or implementations implemented by governments, all they do is force people to become more creative and innovative. I mean, there's always, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all, because if your options are cut off, if A and B is cut off, then you have to create a C. And so all those capital controls are doing and will do, especially in Argentina, you put capital restrictions like that, all that's going to do is make the cryptocurrency sector thrive more down there. And so Bitcoin is growing exponentially down there, because I know they had ATMs down there. They might have taken them away now, but all it does is create more opportunities for people to be creative. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really hurt. It hurts the citizen up front, but then it spurs creativity and ideas, which is what people unfortunately end up going to. It says Rego Rock says they are failing to ban Bitcoin, so next best thing is to create your own crypto and deceive your population. Yeah, so I'm assuming that has a lot to do with China and the announcement of their, I'm gonna call it the renminbi coin, because it's unique that all the depositors that are digitally based, all the renminbis and yuan that are digital, they're not messing with those. They're only creating a coin portion to get rid of cash. So they're basically going to remove cash, which keeps the public from having an opportunity to transact privately. It says, and everyone will move to government-issued cryptos. Yeah, by default, everyone will be forced to go into it. And so it's just going to be the adoption phase for the government cryptos, because you're going to have, especially in the U.S., there's a good portion of the population, almost 1/3 of the population, are not necessarily computer savvy in a sense. It happens to be the baby boomers. And so good luck with getting the baby boomers to accept a solely digital payment method, where they got to have control of, private keys and all that stuff like that. So until things become more simplified, I don't see the government really being able to roll out a digital currency outside of the one we already have, which is already predominantly digital. So, because I'm not sure. I don't think a lot of senior citizens end up using cash anyway. What else we got here? It says low blood pressure is cash is trash. Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, low blood pressure. I'm not sure what that's a response to somebody. But to be honest with you, as much, cash is definitely trash in currencies outside of the Federal Reserve note at this current moment, because by all the chaos happening around us, that gives a Federal Reserve note a little bit more of a lifeline. And so when it comes to the reserve currency, it's not trash yet. It will become trash once the recession, the depression, whatever kicks in, and they officially start ramping up the quantitative easing. And so for those that may not know, there's already quantitative easing has already began. I think I referenced that a week ago, but we've had 2 straight weeks. Let me pull this up. 2 straight weeks of the Federal Reserve purchasing treasuries. Let me pull this up here. Let me find this article. But at the last 2 weeks, I've heard, I don't really follow the bond market extensively, but yet I like to pay attention to other people who specialize in that type of information there. But over the last 2 weeks, the Federal Reserve has been buying treasuries for the first time since the quantitative easing stopped. And so that signals that they are quantitative easing again, that they are basically they're purchasing debt instruments from the government with no reserves technically. So they're basically printing funny money again. So let me try to find an article. I can't find the article, but it's out there. For the last 2, so I think it's as of now, it was $6 billion the week before, and then $8 billion this past week. So for the last 2 weeks, the Federal Reserve has been purchasing debt instruments. And just the graph that I'm referring to, it looks extremely odd because they haven't been doing. They've been selling for the last 2 years, give or take the quantitative tightening. So yeah, QE is back on. I'm just saying it hasn't been announced yet because, as you see, the mainstream media hasn't touched it. The article I'm referring to is from an alternative media person that watches the balance sheet. So with that being the case, quantitative easing has already began. Therefore, that's $14 billion that just came into existence from nowhere that now the government has on its balance sheet to issue out in the form of currency eventually. So basically, everyone is watching, everyone is listening to the sound of my voice. The current currency you're sitting on is now $14 billion weaker because of the diluting of the currency digitally as of now officially, but yet when if that paper hits the streets, even more so, the 1.7 trillion is only in existence. That numbers are probably going to double pretty soon, which could be very problematic. But anyway, with that being the case, let me find out what's going on in the chat here. I'm going to get ready to dial back. I just wanted to check in. Says Low Blood said, Mike, what will happen in the markets tomorrow? Low blood pressure. Ah, man, great question. Let me check in and see what those futures is looking like, because I want to say I've heard some news about China not necessarily doing good today. So let me look at the futures and see if what they're pricing in as of now. And so as of now, it looks like tomorrow, barring some type of intervention, but yet you can guarantee there'll be some intervention. Looking at the futures, which is basically the pre-market contract activity before markets open officially. So as of now, the Dow is, negative 146 points. S&P is negative 14. So as of now, before markets open tomorrow, we're already in the red. So barring some type of fake phone call or some type of activity behind the scenes, we're going to start off in the red again to kick the week off. And with that being the case, it's just a matter of now, will the powers that be intervene or let it ride? And I think they're going to intervene. So just because the goal is to get us through, the goal, in my opinion, is to either thwart the president's hopes of winning another second term. So they can probably let this thing, they can let the market fall off from the bottom if they want it. But I think, and this is just my opinion, from what I heard about, President Trump last week receiving 2 calls or something about President Trump, and that news itself gave a little confidence into the markets, as well as the president once again, all he has to do is say, and more than likely, I don't really think he's telling the truth, but all he do is say, I spoke with President Xi over the phone last night, late night, midnight call, and things are looking good with the trade deal. And then markets will go back up. No, damn well he ain't talked to no damn Xi. But yet, so with stuff like that, you can never really put a pinpoint on anything. But when everything is all said and done, the 5 or 4 to 5 things, I appreciate the one who chipped in on the 5th one, the 4 or 5 things that we can kind of learn from. This is all my opinion. Believe me, do your own research. I can just point you in a direction, share my opinions. But what we can learn from, based upon activity already happening, capital controls are underway right now. And you got to remember, the entire system, it thrives upon the people having confidence in it, therefore keeping their capital in it. And the moment things look sketchy and people decide to wake up, mind you, if you're not thinking ahead, you can probably be one of the people who wait until you hear about it on Fox or CNN. And when you hear it on those channels, it's already too late, because billions, trillions has already been drained, and you won't be able to get out. So, do what you will. But with that being the case, it's good to just, walk things through so you get an idea of what could be going on. So That being the case, it's been great hanging out. I'm about to dial back. It's been 34 minutes, but for those that might be catching this restream and replay, the 5 things I mentioned, just to give them to you again. The capital control, as far as the banks need to know how much, when, where, that we already have now in the U.S., according to the Banking Act and Patriot Act. We got cash bans of 10,000, over 10,000, like Australia's not being, can't use over $10,000. Then we got the third one in Argentina right now, capital controls. You can't do more than 10,000 a month, give or take. And then the other one is what's happening right now. It's been undone in Greece, which is kind of odd that they're deciding to let go of capital controls when within the next couple of months they're probably going to be putting them back on. But where they give you a certain amount that you can get per week or per day. So all things that are being done, as well as austerity, which they've done in Greece and Italy as well. Basically saying we're going to cut your stuff, whatever. But with that being the case, that's all she wrote, people. It's been great hanging out. For those that have enjoyed the back and forth, more importantly, if you've enjoyed it, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. Beneath the screen, just hit the thumbs up button or thumbs down, whatever floats your boat. And then also over here, RTD Gold Team, starting this month, right now, the Care Bars organization is striding big time now. So for those who want to save and go automated, they got the phone coming out. We will be getting those next month, and all the opportunities in the world is out there for those that are interested. Educate yourself. Get the silver RTD gold coin, RTD silver coin, still available as well. Those are doing well. So other than that, you have options, you have information. Make wise decisions, pray about it, and go from there. But other than that, it's been great hanging out, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.